Amber was told her Crohn's disease was something that she'd have to manage forever. Instead, she turned inward and healed her body from the inside out. In this episode, Amber takes us through the moment she stopped outsourcing her health and started rebuilding it from the ground up, beginning with food in her daily lifestyle. Amber speaks candidly about hormonal shifts starting in your 30s, why baseline health markers matter more than chasing symptoms, and how ignoring your intuition often shows up as illness later on. We also dive into the well drop method, the system she created to help women simplify wellness and regain confidence in their bodies without restriction, obsession, or overwhelm. What makes this episode different is its clarity. There's no biohacking, no extremes, no performative wellness, just foundational practices, honest self inquiry, and the reminder that healing often begins when we stop trying to fix ourselves. This is about the simple daily habits we can choose to feel incredible in our bodies and our minds every day. Welcome to In Alignment. I'm Annie.
And I'm Marissa. You were meant to find this today, and we're so glad you're here.
Welcome to In Alignment, Amber. We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
We are so excited to dive into this conversation. It'd be amazing to kick it off with just a quick intro to yourself, your background. You have a really inspiring story. Would love to just dive into your story a bit.
Yes. So I, in hindsight now, think of myself as a wellness rebel. At the time, I had a very unusual wellness journey. I actually started when I was 11. I don't talk about that part as much, but I was a competitive dancer and my right knee started to swell. And at first, I would do cortisone shots, and they diagnosed me with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And at the time, this is going back, goodness, must be 1991, the protocol was to take Bayer aspirin, and it was coded Bayer aspirin, which was newer to the market. So we knew that that could possibly affect my stomach at the time, but the doctor swore that it wouldn't affect it. So I took it at 11, and it wasn't until actually Christmas Eve in 1993 that I had massive stomach pains and went for months trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And no doctor could diagnose me until they figured out I had Crohn's disease. And through that process, I ended up having surgery my spring break of my sophomore year of high school. And the protocol for that, and similar to actually today, is for then it was steroids. Take steroids for the rest of your life. That was your protocol. And today, now it's biologics. And because of my Bayer aspirin experience when I was a kid, I just didn't like the idea of having to take something forever the rest of my life. And actually, I always say, like, read the side effects. You never think of the side effects of a potential medication, or even it could be a supplement, whatever it may be. We only think about the benefits, but I always was looking at like what could happen on the dark side. So we were really searching for other means out there. And I don't even know how my mom did it, but she is one of my biggest inspirations of being an advocate and listening to your gut. Like when you feel something in your bones is not right, I always say, especially to women, that is our gift, that you should listen to that and go for it and just see where that road takes you. And for us, luckily, we really leaned into our community, asking everyone, anyone, like, do you know other ways to help with Crohn's disease? Like, what are other things? And we really believed in the power of food, but we didn't necessarily connect the dots at that time. And through our community, we learned about this place called the Macrobiotic Institute. And macrobiotics, you may or may not even know what that is, but Madonna and Gwyneth Paltrow kind of put that on the map later down the road. And it was a place up in the Berkshires that was macrobiotics stemmed from Japan. The founders were Japanese. And so my mom and I went just blind. And I think the biggest lesson for me in that was just to be curious and to be open-minded and see where the road will take you. And we went, and my life completely transformed in a week. I post-surgery was on the medication just for the time being. I went off my medicine within the first 2 days of being there. And I learned about energy, of food, soil, Eastern care philosophy. We would do Tai Chi in the morning. I learned about acupuncture, acupressure, all of these like body work modalities. And the foundation of that was really about eating good quality food and nourishing your body with at least 3 meals a day. So, I was really young, and I actually met many people who had healed themselves from stage 4 cancers. and all these horrible diseases. And I think that was an eye-opening moment for me of like the power of the body to heal itself when given the right tools. And for me at the time, that was macrobiotics. And post surgery, we of course went back for a 6-month check in with my doctor, told him what we were doing. Like, no, we're not doing the steroids, but we're eating food. He basically told us we were crazy and made my mom cry when we left the office. And I think I must have just made up my mind, like, I'm never looking back. I didn't want to be chained to doctor appointments. And I was on a mission just to make myself feel good every step of the way. And that philosophy really carried me through my college years, my 20s working. And I always would go back. I would say I was macrobiotic for only about like 2.5 years. But then post that, I was pescatarian for a very long time. And I really leaned on the principles of like taking care of your body. So in times of stress, for me, that's when things would sort of like bother me. My body would sort of break down and I would go and get reflexology or just make sure that I would get actually back in New York City. There was a macrobiotic restaurant. So I would get deliveries from there and just eat really good food, bring my lunch to work. So learning about these little habits and tweaks that you can make that seemed simple on the surface, but they were completely transformational from the inside out. And then fast forward after having kids, I realized I never let Crohn's really be my story. That wasn't my story. My story was always I'm like your wellness weirdo friend who took you to like smelly supermarkets before Whole Foods existed, or always like was like the spa girl going and getting different treatments and so forth. That was really who I was in my friendship circle. And then as a mother, caring for your child. Most of my friends didn't breastfeed. I breastfed. I made all of our food. And when they were in nursery school, that was kind of a big light bulb moment for me of like, oh my gosh, people really just don't have a clue. Like they were giving goldfish to these little kids and Ritz crackers. Luckily, I was friendly and very close with the head of school. And I said, and I actually educated them of like it's about like the quality of the ingredients going into your body. And when you're so young, your body is so much more sensitive. So while you may not feel anything, but that in time can affect your digestive system. It can affect your attention span in a classroom because of the chemicals. It can affect how healthy you may be, and maybe you'll get more sick more times in the year than another child because of the quality, right? Garbage in, garbage out. It's like we know it in the business sense, in the work sense, but we forget it when in our day to day. Think about like even like the quality of the water that you drink. Like, what are those things that you're doing every day? And if like it's garbage in, you're going to get garbage out down the road. Anyways, so business wise, do you want to go into business or do you want me to continue talking
I
about
want
wellness?
I want you to talk about macrobiotics first, because I'll be honest with you, this is the first time I've even heard of this.
Ooh, okay. So we'll talk about macrobiotics. So
Yeah.
what is macrobiotics? Macrobiotics was a special diet that really consisted of, it's funny thinking about it now because everyone's anti brown rice, but a big portion of their food was brown rice for the fiber, not white rice. So you had a lot of brown rice, you would have barley, and everything was warmed. Nothing was raw. So there was no raw foods because everything was about nourishing the body, warming the body so it could digest easily. And then, of course, vegetables, but they actually were more heavy into some sea vegetables, which is different. And even having a tablespoon of pickled vegetables for digestion. I don't know if you've been to Japan, but when I went to Japan, for me, it felt like a coming home because I realized macrobiotics was an offshoot of the Japanese diet naturally, because that's where it came from. And then you would do miso soup instead of the beginning of the meal at the end of the meal, better for digestion. So everything was about like the also like the energy in which the angle in which you cut the vegetables would give different energy. So like in the winter, you would have a longer grain rice. In the summer, sorry, it's backwards. In the winter, you would have short grain rice, so nourishing, protecting, it's cold. In the summer, it's lighter, so longer grain rice, a lighter energy. You would eat with the seasons, which makes sense, but we just don't live that way. So eating with the seasons, eating vegetables that are within season. And this is going back into the early 90s. So we didn't even probably have avocados since like now, like there's like a whole avocado craze. There were no such things as avocado in their diet because avocados wasn't indigenous to this was back in Massachusetts. If you lived in Mexico and you have avocado trees, and we have them in Miami, sure, then eat the avocados that are of the local area. So taught about eating local, eating with the season, and choosing foods that are warming, not raw, choosing real food, and having a balanced plate. So everything was about balance and like having your plate be balanced from like a carb, vegetable, and protein was actually it was not very protein heavy. So you could have fish like once every 10 days. So no red meat, no chicken.
Everything you're saying, I actually heard from, or like a lot of this for the first time from my acupuncturist. He
Yep.
was saying you have to eat your food warm, you have to eat with the seasons, talking about the balance, a lot of those things don't over-index on protein, so it definitely seems like kind of the Eastern medicine is really showing up.
Very, very much so. Very like Eastern medicine, Eastern philosophy, yin and yang. Everything is about the yin and yang. So, like yin energy versus yang energy, and also the energy within your body and your own composition, right? Because we're all so different. So, then from like a body work standpoint, helping to like balance out your energy so that we can stay as balanced as possible, right? Because when one thing takes over, then it's too strong in either direction. That's never a good thing if we just stay in that extreme state. So it was about just moderation, which I think is hard as people to like live in moderation. But I guess the biggest takeaways, and I still live this way today, is shop at the farmers markets. The food is the best from the farm. It is freshest, especially now with the proliferation of Amazon. It's great. Like I shopped at the Whole Foods before it was Whole Foods. And then now that they're everywhere, like they're coming in trucks, they're coming from all over. We don't know how old the food is versus if you go to your local farmer's market, it's a little bit more of an effort. But once it becomes part of your schedule, it feels like it's just part of your life. You're getting so much more nourishment from the soils because you could talk to the farmers and understand their practices and understand sort of where the food's coming from and when it was picked, most likely picked that week. So you're going to have more vitamins and nutrients in that food that you eat it that your body's going to recognize and your body's going to thrive from it versus old food. I call it dead food now. Like I've been like brainwashing my family of hopefully, if I can make it to the farmer's market every week, which I really try, if I don't, it's very hard for me to like buy vegetables from a supermarket because I'm like, it's dead food. What's the point? I rather just eat sprouts or something for vitamins and minerals. And you will start to like my husband is not, I'm very in tune with it. My husband is not as much, but him and the kids, you can start to taste the difference. You start to feel the difference. And you don't need it's interesting. I think that so much in this world is all marketing and amazing marketing, but we don't need as much food as we're marketed to be. Like, we're not going to starve. Like, we are lucky that we live in these developed countries. We eat like maybe kind of too much because we never give ourselves a break. So, when you eat a vegetable, even think of just like one carrot, eating one carrot from the farmer's market versus one carrot from a supermarket, on average, your body's going to just feel a different sense of nourishment. And when you start to connect, you feel the difference. It's pretty eye opening. And then you'll run I call it the domino effect. Then the trickle effect is you'll be less deficient in your body when you do your lab work, like with your vitamins and minerals. You'll need less of the supplementation craze going on because you're getting it all from your food. Food is number one. We've been now in the wellness boom, because we're such a consumer economy, we're taking all these like electrolytes and all these pills. We're overtaxing our body with stuff. And it may be on the surface level good stuff, but it's synthetic. It's not real. It's not from food. Where food is our medicine ultimately. And I truly I saw I see it all the time, like how incredible our body is if we give it the right tools so that it could thrive.
It's so true. And I think people are always looking for the shortcut in these very well branded supplements and even workouts. Like there's some workouts, and I'm sure in Miami, New York, LA, they're like $55, 60. I mean, Tracy Anderson method. And it's
It's
so funny how people would rather do that than just eat a balanced diet.
Yes. I mean, friends, they've been friends with me from when I first became macrobiotic. We're still friends today. And I feel like the method to my madness is now shown 30 plus years later that it works. Like, not, I don't want to jinx it, but I rarely get sick. When I get sick, I'm taken down, but it's so rare. Like, I have so much energy. I feel good. I'm not chasing. Like, I've built this structure of my life, which I then kind of like created this well drop method out of it for midlife specifically, where now they're starting to realize, like, oh, maybe there was something there. Cause I never yo yoed. My weight is always the same within a few water weight pounds, whatever. But like, I'm like so consistent. I never did these crash diets. I never find a different detox here and there, sure. But like, I always just leaned into real food and real meals to nourish my body. Like, cause I came from I did not want Crohn's to like become active. I always came from a place of like healing rather than restricting. And I just think as women, like we're so used to like eat less, work out harder, or I've almost like done the opposite where it's like eat more and work out less, but still work out because I'm very active and you will be thinner than if you're doing the opposite. And people are like, I don't understand. Like I coach people now. I'm like, you're undernourishing yourself and that's why you're holding on to the weight that won't let go. You need to eat more.
Well, I also think that weight is safety. Like weight is, I think that people that struggle with weight, it is 9 times out of 10 an energetic form of protection. It's what are you afraid of? What are you avoiding? Food is such a dissociation mechanism. Like you come home from work, you're unhappy in your job, in your relationship, something's bothering you. Let's overeat. Let's open the fridge. Also, weight is like physical shelter and protection. So when you don't want to be seen or you're suppressing something, I think it's a way to keep you, I don't know, sheltered or closed off, but I honestly think that weight is energetic. And when you are embodied and embraced and you're living your life and you trust your body to heal and maintain a healthy weight and like kind of guide you intuitively to eat or to not eat, it's unbelievable how balanced you become. You mentioned that at the beginning of this episode, that balancing your internal energy was part of your healing process. What does that mean to you? And how did you go about that?
Yeah, I think what I learned, I mean, I was probably like every typical female teenager, definitely forms of body dysmorphia. I'm sure I still even suffer with that today. Negative self talk. I think I just didn't appreciate like the gifts that we naturally have as humans. And I think I always say actually that getting sick, I look at it as a gift because it really taught me self love and how how your words have energy. And so how you speak to yourself even if you don't believe it, like you need to say positive words in order for them, you're basically manifesting it to become reality. And it is so pretty wild that we're talking about this because my son actually just met with Mike Tyson literally 2 days ago. And he was talking to him about sports and mental ruts and stuff like that. And his whole philosophy was about mindset and your words, and words have power in meeting. And so don't allow any negative self talk come in. And there is something there. Like this has been around if we probably like went into ancient times. Like there is an energy there. Words have power. So whether you believe it or not, it's like when you catch yourself into this negative self talk, you just flip it and even lie to yourself and be positive, and then eventually, it's going to like come through. And I think for me, especially, like I was 15 years old, like you're going through puberty and then going through college, it shifted me that I just sort of removed that negative self talk from my life. And I'm an eternal optimist. It just, like, something like the switch got flipped and I always leaned into that. And I think that we have to appreciate our bodies. And I think when you nourishing it with quality food, everything starts to sort of just be a little bit more balanced. And it's actually the chemicals in the food that's what starts to mess with our brains. So even just I try to challenge people that I work with and say, let's just go package free for a week. And then people, depending on their habits, will see how hard that is because we're very into like eating a bar as a meal or a snack. It's from a package. And I'm like, okay, let's boil some eggs on Sunday. You bring those as your snacks. Let's get some real nuts. And we start, I had a client, she loved to make like grab and go items. And so she liked eggs. So I'm like, let's make quiches and you put them in the muffin trays, grab and go. Like we've lost the sense of like bringing real food around us. We've become, from when I was a child, it was sort of the canned soup phenomenon into now this packaged bar phenomenon. And that is technically processed. So it's like, okay, rather you eat real oats and whatever is in these bars, real, have some real nuts instead of all these nut butter things. And your body will, it's all about your body recognizing it, and your body, because our bodies, it recognizes things that are as close to nature as possible. And that's the difference. It's breaking our conditioning, is really at the end of the day what it is. And leaning back to just things that are real.
It's interesting, yeah, having our bodies recognize it is a way I hadn't really thought of it before, because it is, even if those ingredients are written down a certain way, once we alter it to this form, like we feel it. You don't get as full from a bar, even if it has 500 calories, as you would from a piece of food that your body is chewing and digesting and processing.
Yeah.
So you were really early on all of this stuff. Like you were saying, this was before it was all trends and everyone was more aware of this stuff. How did you decide to make it more of a career? At what point did that happen for you?
Yeah. So I didn't realize, but I guess I am an entrepreneur. I launched my first business at 27. I always love to fill the white space, and they always like to come from a place of service. So I had founded a jewelry concierge called A Star that I ran for over a decade. And after that, I realized I wanted to make a greater impact in the world. I launched the business because I really wanted to help people to get the gifts that they want and have these like special moments in their life, be exceptional. And that was great. But then for me, it was like, okay, what's like the next layer of that? But then how do you pivot from jewelry to wellness? Like that, I did not know how you do. So I was sort of on a journey and just more open, like talking about being open and curious of just seeing, okay, wellness is who I am at the core. So obviously you're hearing the story, like that is me. And I could tell from women at the time, at least moms, everyone was so fried and so overwhelmed. And I love that I knew how to take a moment for myself. Like I was really good at my self-care practices, and I want to introduce that. I'm very into wellness for all, to both kids and adults in a fun and playful way. And I actually, through my husband, discovered a thing called halotherapy, which is called salt therapy, where my husband had this nagging cough. It was a fall of 20, I think 2015 or 2016. And it wasn't going away. And we happened to be in Miami, and they randomly had this salt room that my parents were like, go here. Like, it's supposed to be good for respiratory conditions. So we went, and after one session, it was gone. And I was like, this was a horrible, icky experience, but this treatment worked. Like, what is this? And more people need to know about it. So that I was laughing as I was searching for how do I get into wellness. I'm like, I'm going to go into the salt business because I wanted to elevate the experience, because I didn't love how the experience was done. It was very medical. It was very
What is
sterile
it?
and miracle feeling. All you do for salt therapy is you sit in a room and it gets infused with dry, salty air. And just sitting in the room and breathing in the air is the treatment. So the treatment is really easy. You don't have to change your clothes. It's super accessible, safe for all ages. So I was like, oh, this is cool. I can like combine like the idea of wellness for all with salt therapy. And then I added a layer of breath work onto it too. And then I actually layered, without telling people at the time, binaural beats. So I allowed people, it was the first social wellness. So I was like, instead of going and meeting your friend for coffee, come and be, I'm all about efficiency, be efficient, get a wellness treatment. It's good at immune boosting, de-stressing. It's actually really good for your skin and hair, and hang out with a friend. Or you could put headphones on and sort of choose your journey based upon what mood you're in. And you could choose relaxation, de stress, energize, whatever it was. And that was through binaural beats, which has now become a little bit more of a thing. But at the time, I didn't tell them what I was doing to them. But people were walking in, I would say, with their shoulders up here, all tense. And then within just 45 minutes, it was like they released, and it was so awesome to watch,
How
like
does it
day in and
work?
day out.
Like, what is the science behind
So basically, one session of a salt therapy treatment was equal to being at the beach for 3 days. So it's negative ions and like the antimicrobial nature of the salt.
This might be a stretch, but is there anything with energy there? I've noticed after I have certain if I do Reiki or any like energy work, they often recommend salt baths afterwards.
Yeah.
Ground you.
So, I think it's very grounding. So, especially like living in the city. So, the whole floor was all Himalayan salt. So, people would take off their shoes and wear socks. So, you got the natural grounding moment. And I think it's energy clearing, is what I would say. So, that's also like what the salt does when you take a bath, right? It's like clearing out and balancing. So, I founded Salt House. And I guess my thing is, as an entrepreneur, once I have the idea, I don't hem and haw. I just start going for it. I think there's a lot of people out there who have amazing ideas. They'll talk about it forever. I'm not one of the talkers, I'm an action taker. And I don't even necessarily know, like, I have no idea what I was doing. I've never been in the salt business, I've never had a brick and mortar place. But you just like kind of take one step, one foot in front of the other, and you just start building, and then all of a sudden it's like how I am, like even with wellness, right? You like start shifting your habits, and all of a sudden you look back, you're like, oh wow, like I actually created something. And you sort of like learn as you go. I'm an avid learner. That's what lights me up. I find it really exciting. I love the creating stage. Because I think it's just really fun to sort of, I had such a vision. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And then I just executed on it.
Well, you said earlier that you have a really strong intuition and gut sense. And I think that where a lot of people have an idea and don't take action is the grappling of, is this smart? Is this okay? Am I going to figure it out? And, it's hard to really trust that instinct that it sounds like you've been kind of training that since you were a kid with your mom.
Maybe. I mean, I also am really detail oriented. So I would say have the idea and then start putting a business plan together. Start like throwing the numbers in there. I had no idea what anything cost. So I just started to book meetings, do investigative work, start putting, pen to paper and see if there's something there. Where I think a lot of people just live in the ideation stage for too long. Like personally for me, that would drive me nuts. Like I couldn't imagine just like hemming and hawing. Like that would make me too crazy. Like if I'm thinking about it long enough, like I have to be like, all right, I got to see if this is something. Like I think that's like for anything in life. I always say just be curious. I think curiosity can lead you to like amazing different destinations. And like you can start with the curiosity, you have your idea, but then put a business plan together, start putting numbers together, create a business model and see what you have. And then there's so many tools out there now. I think it's amazing that now even with ChatGPT, oh my goodness, I'm sure that can like happen in 2 seconds where you can sort of use ChatGPT to your benefit to see, what are the numbers? How much does this all cost? What do I need to raise money? Should I self fund? Like, do I do a GoFundMe? Like there's so many different avenues, but I think it all starts with like the curiosity to then take that next step instead of just keeping it in your mind because if it you are it depends on the place that you're coming from, but for me, I was always coming from a place of service, of trying to help people and wanting to elevate people. I guess for me, I felt like it would be a disservice if I just kept that all in my brain.
When did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Because how old were you when you started your jewelry business? And what were you doing before that?
Yeah, so I went to college, I was a finance major and minored in economics. I had no idea what I wanted to do after school. I believe my senior year, I realized the finance was kind of boring. Like I was very good at numbers, but I'm like, this is kind of boring. So I grew up in a family jewelry business. They were manufacturers, but I always worked at the shows. I've like created lines before. I never thought of myself as a creative person. My mom was always known as the creative person, but I always thought of it from the art sense. I didn't know you could be creative in a different way. I don't know why I felt that, but I realized in hindsight, I guess I am pretty creative, just in a different artistic way. So out of school, I said I want to be on the other side. Instead of being like the wholesaler selling to the retailers, I want to work in the retail side buying. Like I always had a keen eye. So I became a buyer and I worked for different fine jewelry company. I worked for luxury brands from Gucci to Cartier and Henry Bendel's. And then I launched while I was at Henry Bendel's and then I left. And then I ended up actually, my first startup experience was for a flash sale website called Hotlook.com, which was a Gilt Group competitor. And so I came on as a consultant for that and then went full time and sort of did two things. So I'm even weirder that, like, yes, I love like building businesses, but I also love to do two things at the same time. I
What
don't
is
know
your
why.
human design?
That is a great question. I know what I am from a was it like the personality? I'm like a ENFJ, something like that.
Okay.
But I
Look
don't know if I
your
had
design after. You can go online, Jenna
I
Zoe's
know I
website.
need to do I don't think I've done my human design. Okay, you're gonna inspire me now. Human design. So yeah, I always love to do two things at the same time. So when I was working at Holook and doing my jewelry business, I was like my happy sweet spot. And then I was doing jewelry and then building Salt House. And then I really did Salt House full time. But then COVID happened. We moved to Miami. So we closed Salt House and I chose to not reopen it. I still have it for right now. I felt that consumer habits totally shifted. And for me, it all became all about wellness at home. People are spending much more time at home. Indoor air could be 80 or 90 times more toxic than outdoor air. So really then like educating people because the wellness noise exploded, obviously post COVID. And a lot of women were coming at me like overwhelmed, confused. They knew that I was like very discerning in terms of like quality and very investigative and like researching like what things are the best. And that's like, it's actually funny. It's like the combination of like my buyer skills from my past life, but using it in my new life from in the wellness lens. And after seeing sort of like where the landscape was going, I decided to come back into the wellness space. I took a little bit of a break and I created the Well Job and started with the podcast. And that was like the way to get my voice back out there in an authentic way to me. I love having conversations like this instead of kind of just yelling and speaking at the phone. I felt like that just wasn't authentic to how I communicate. So a podcast was like a better way for me to sort of have genuine conversations. I love asking questions and listen to people and what they were dealing with so then I can answer it through the podcast in longer form. And then of course you could chop it up to shorter form. And since then we launched newsletter, we have coaching, the Well Drop Method. My whole mission is about upgrading your habits in midlife because there was no roadmap. I'm 45 when I turned 40, and technically midlife starts at 35. So I wish I knew like, oh, these are the things you need to do so you could thrive in this chapter. And I saw them with my friends and colleagues that were older than me. They were all lost, confused, and women were suffering into their 50s. And I was like, this was another moment of solving the white space. So, like, this is not going to be us. Absolutely refuse. And so that's where I spent the last 5 years really like figuring out like what are the things that need to shift in order to thrive. And that's now the Well Drop Method. And I do consulting as well. I do a lot of things, but that's like my core of the Well Drop. And then I'm actually building out and launching hopefully this month the Well Job Network, which is a highly curated, best in class brands and services that cater to women in midlife. So that this way everyone has a destination. They know they can go to the Well Job to get resources.
Can you tell us a little bit about what those habits and changes are and kind of what shifts for women at 35?
Yes. So it's funny. What's so confusing is that everyone is so different. So, like, what may happen, it happened to me, I believe, at 36, but to none of my other friends. So I never thought it was perimenopause. And it may happen to someone else at 47. So there's such a huge range of time. And the symptoms are very subtle that no one was connecting the dots until now that it's can be hormone related and what do you do to help that. So it kind of can be very subtle that your workouts are like a little bit harder or you don't have exactly it's a little bit harder to wake up in the morning than it used to be or you're holding on to like a little bit of like weight that like you're like I feel like at least for me, like I always not the best of times. I always gain weight in the summer. There's not the time to gain weight, but like that's just my body. Like I always knew every summer I'm gonna like gain a few pounds. And then by October it will go away. Like it just like I would laugh. Like of course my body, who wants to gain weight in the summertime? But that's just how my body It wasn't winter, it was summer. And also the brain for me was the biggest one. Like I would like blame it on mommy brain. So like, where's my phone? Where are my keys? It's mommy brain. I'm too overwhelmed or I'm stressed. But it wasn't, yes, it was partially some of that. But a bigger thing was that like my hormones are shifting under the surface. But according to my blood labs, it all looked normal. So any regular doctor would never connect those dots. And then talking about what are the habits that need to shift as we get older and our hormones start changing and declining. Like, I wish this for you guys are younger, like the sooner you lock it in, the better. Is we actually need to connect more to nature, right? I said like eating with nature, number one, but also living our life according to nature. So, like waking up and being more in tune with the sun and getting the sun rays on our body to charge our cells. Like we are technically like these animals. I always tell the story that I just had this epiphany. I was watching this cat in my backyard always come to the same spot and like sit in the sun. And finally, I was like, there has to be something to it. Like, why is this cat going to the same spot in the backyard? I'm sure every day, but I would only like pay attention on the weekends. And I looked it up and it said literally the cat figured out the way the sun's rays hit in that spot of the backyard. That's like its cellular charging station. And so it goes there to get the sun rays. So it charges its cells for the day and then it runs along. And we sort of need to take that. That's right. The animal being in tune with nature. Like we need to do that as humans and connect to nature and I would say skip the sunglasses in the morning. So we need to act a little bit more in tune with nature. Skip the sunglasses in the morning until lunchtime. Like these simple little habit shifts are transformational that you're going to have more energy during the day. And also, then at night, your body's going to naturally start to produce melatonin so that you can fall asleep at night. We've just become so disconnected to nature. That's why I think our bodies are just running out of sync and we need people feel the need to take all these things like a melatonin to fall asleep or I don't know what they're taking all these different caffeine drinks to feel energized in the morning. It's really just locking in those day-to-day habits that are more aligned with nature and then maybe the other stuff you it disappears and you don't even need it.
What can we do Marissa and I are both in our early 30s. What can women do throughout their 20s, early 30s to set themselves up for healthy perimenopause, menopause, fertility,
Yes.
other than connecting to nature? I know you just touched on a really big one.
Yes. So a biggest one that I would do, I always say my sister's 11 years younger than me. So it's all the things I tell my sister to do is I would get a DEXA scan now to see where your bones are at. They go around, find like the cheapest one in the city. At least down here, I know there's one for like $100. Maybe there's a special you could do with your friends. Because what I've learned now, I'm 45. I just had my DEXA scan. I randomly had one at 41 because I broke my foot. So just to see I didn't have bone problems, but that never would have happened until by doctor's order it once you're 65. It's way too late. But what I learned is that the DEXA scan, what the results are comparing you to is when you're 30. So I was like, that would have been nice if I had a DEXA at 30 to compare. I always talk about setting this baseline to know what my bones were then. So then I know as I age and check in how I'm doing. So I'm 45. I have no idea what I was at 30. I would have liked that. I know from 41 to 45 that now my right hip has osteopenia. And I don't believe I had it at 41, but a lot of times smaller petite people can naturally be on the osteopenia range. But if I knew at 30 that was my normal range, I wouldn't be concerned. Does that make sense? Because I would have had that as my baseline, like, oh, that's just my body. Like that's how my body is. And then I can like work from there. So I would say get a DEXA scan because you're not going to hear that from anybody. But I think it's great to have that in the bag. And then if you want to do a DEXA scan every 10 years or so, strength training. I know that's now, thank goodness, becoming a trend. I never strength trained, maybe once a week at best after I guess my second kid. I always was more of the cardio person. I was a kickboxer forever, which I love still, but strength training is huge because your bones are the strongest at 30. So if you can work off of that strong foundation, you will set yourself up for success down the road because most women currently happen to have these hip fractures and falls because of their bones being weak. We are the ones that we live 6 years longer than men on average, and a lot of women make up nursing homes. And that is my inspiration. Like, I don't want to be that woman. And I think if we just upgrade these habits from the time we're about your age, we won't be, we'll shift that narrative for the future. So, strength training is a huge one, getting a DEXA scan. And then talking about having your foundation. So, especially with fertility and people having kids at different ages. So, there's two. So, your blood labs will probably show that they're really good. I think getting a Dutch test is great because it's a little bit of a different perspective on your hormones and it's going through your urine versus your blood. So I think it's good to have a baseline, at least at 30, to see where you are hormonally and it breaks down your pathways. And what I mean by that is it will show you your estrogen number, but then it breaks down your estrogens into estrogen 1, 2, and 3. And then your estrogen to progesterone levels and your balance and ratios. It's giving such a deeper dive. I think that that's great to just have in kind of you think of it as like you're creating your own personal file. Like I'm such a fan of owning your wellness. Now everything is online. Like there's such an easier way that we have the access now to be able to do that than from my day. Like I first did a Dutch test at 36 or 37. And thank goodness my doctor even did it. Like, I was the only one who did it for years, but it's actually through the Dutch test that I saw that my hormones started totally shifting only like last year or 2 years ago. But on blood, I still looked normal. So I think that it's just good for you to like get that into your repertoire so that you can sort of have a baseline of where you are now and hopefully everything is strong and great. But it may show some random things that you're not a good methylator. Like I learned from the Dutch test when I first did it, I was like, what's methylation? What does that mean? And for me, methylation, it means you have to take certain methylated B vitamins because your body won't absorb it. So this is some good information for you to know because if I was just taking other types of B vitamins, it wouldn't be doing anything for me, especially women. We need B vitamins. And so mine have to be methylated. And it'll let you know if your body's good at getting rid of estrogen or not. Because obviously, if you have too much estrogen, that's not good. And too little is not good either. So lots of good learnings in that I think are helpful.
I had a similar experience. I've been working with a naturopath for a while now, but when I got my cycle back after going off the pill, I had horrible cramping, such bad cramps, clotting, and also really tender breasts and extreme PMS, like sadness and anxiety before my period. And my naturopath obviously did more granular, in depth testing than my traditional doctor would do. And she put me, obviously, diet comes first. Drinking it right now, I have like 2 cups of green tea a day and spearmint tea. But green tea is like obviously very high in antioxidants and also dandelion root, some of these detoxing teas, and
Yeah,
also put me on DIM, which is a broccoli extract, which helps flush out excess estrogen system. And I have not had tender breasts, you know, extreme PMS or even cramps in like a year now. And I'm like, thank God I didn't just normalize that because that was excess estrogen that your body, if it's not flushing out, it's retaking it up. And that is one of the biggest contributors to breast cancer. It's really dangerous. So it's, some of these symptoms that we brush off as being women and having, kind of discomfort or irritability monthly are actually signs to really look deeper, even if they're normalized at your doctor.
100%. Yes, I think that that's where it comes to. Like, we have this amazing intuition. And I guess another thing would be to really like trust your intuition and to listen to it and don't disregard it, don't discount it because there is something there. You may not understand why, but we really need to make sure that we do trust our intuition because it will eventually either like quickly or it might take some time, like take you to wherever you need to go. And it's funny on the dim part, I used to also take dim a lot, but then it's funny for me, then in my I actually had to stop dim because my estrogen was too low and I didn't know if it was tanking my estrogen in the perimenopause state. So that's where it comes to like every chapter, you sometimes need different things. So in my 30s, dim was great. And then in my 40s, it was too much. So it's also remembering that you have to don't always just do the same thing, and you do need to have check-ins with yourself. And it doesn't necessarily need to be. I mean, I'm a big fan of doing lab work at least twice a year if you have deficiencies, so you can like work on it. But, like, for the bigger tests, like a Dutch test, every 5 or 10 years is fine. But I love blood labs, like, twice a year so that you can catch things before they become a problem. Because 'Cause I'm all about like, I don't like to wait until you have this, like, Mount Everest issue of a health issue. Like, if you stay on top of it, you're listening to your body, you're taking in the cues, and you deal with it, and you do these little tweaks, then you'll be fine. It's kind of like you have this vintage car and you're like replacing the parts instead of like letting the whole thing fall apart, which for most women that are older, like they just used to like grunt it and bear it and then wait until they literally couldn't handle it anymore. But I think that hopefully the next generations to come, I think we're gonna shift that.
Do you think there's like a good partner that women can have for this? Like, as a naturopath, someone who can help? I know you said take ownership of your own wellness, but it feels so overwhelming that the doctors that we're seeing aren't recommending the right tests or going deep into it enough. Like, is there anyone out there, or is
Yeah,
this something that you feel like we need to own?
it's hard because not all doctors are created equal. I think that they're for your blood labs, like I love how they have different online platforms now from Function to Mito to I feel like there's another one, I'm blanking on the
Berger?
name. Oh yeah, Superpower, like great for your lab work. Like do your lab work there because that can be equal to a functional medicine doctor and sometimes even more detailed. Because even I deal with people all the time who are going to functional medicine doctors and I love them. But now things are getting more digital. I think it's almost like we're going to create this new paradigm shift of how do we do our care. Where, yes, it may seem overwhelming at first, but the more you actually take charge and do it, and you'll start learning it naturally, that it will feel less overwhelming the more that you're learning. But if someone feels that they need a human there, so for your lab work, you can have consults like on your lab work. So you will have that human connection. I do think that is where a health coach does come in handy. So it can help guide you to the right thing for you. Cause like a naturopath is different than a functional medicine doctor who's different than a integrative doctor. And maybe you need a specialist for certain things too. So that's where like that personalized care aspect, the coach, depending on the type of coach, but usually they can help guide you to your next steps instead of going from doctor to doctor to doctor, getting frustrated because I see that as well, which is hard. And I think just shifting of thinking that's I always call it like the Google era. Like we always want to like outsource Google, Chat GPT, just tell me where instead it's just having creating this basic foundation of like checking your lab work twice a year. You can order the Dutch test probably through, I mean, you can order, of course, through me, but like through a coach or through a platform to see where you at. You'll go to your, annual gynecologist appointment. And then if you need a specialist from there, then you have a specialist. So it's sort of shifting the type of care that we think that we need. And hopefully the goal is you don't really need the doctor so much because you're going to be feeling great. And as long as your labs look great, then what do you need the doctor for?
You mentioned listening to your intuition when something feels off, double clicking, not ignoring it, exploring it. Is there an example for you over the course of your healing journey, either healing from Crohn's or balancing your hormones, moving through perimenopause,
Yeah.
where maybe your doctor would have normalized, but you had a ping, like, "I gotta go deeper on this," and, healed something or discovered something important?
Yeah. So the Crohn's for me was not part of my journey or my story really because I kept myself healthy with just food and lifestyle forever. After my second child, which was at 34, something felt off for me. And my functional medicine doctor couldn't necessarily, like, nothing was like eye opening there. I actually found a different type of doctor, more like a nutritionist, but she was a doctor. She was a chiropractor, but she was more like a health coach in a way. And I still work with her today. That she helped me to really do the Dutch test. That was eye opening to see different levels of pathways that were blocked and thinking outside the box. So I knew something was off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it might have been my methylation that whole time. And I just had no idea until I did the Dutch test.
Do you have the what is it? I'm gonna butcher it.
MTHFR.
Yeah. Do you have that gene? Yeah, a lot of people do. What is it, like 40% of people or
A
some
lot of people do. Like, even doing a cool DNA test is really interesting. You can learn about your body. And it's about you knowing your body, I think, because I always say no one's going to know your body better than you. And so we're so used to thinking that doctors are going to have all the answers, and the doctors are great, but they're not going to know as much as you really know. Like, you can go for like a specific thing, but I think we almost like put too much on the doctors, expecting too much. I don't know why we do that, but we do. Like, they're not supposed to know, like, they don't live with us every day. You live with you every day, right? So that's where the whole thing about, like, owning our wellness, like, we have to think about it a little differently, and the goal is, like I said before, is to not necessarily like, I say that from having my lifestyle all these years, it set me free that I didn't need the system as much. And I think that's, like, the biggest thing is to, like the goal is to not need the system, right? That you feel good and everything. You're doing all the right things to keep yourself feeling good and energized, so you don't need to rely on it as much. And then if you have, like, an urgent random thing, of course, there's amazing doctors to use for that. And then if you want someone to help guide you, I think a coach would be the best one to tell you what type of doctor would be the right fit. Because there's so many different types. It's so confusing, and I also see the other side where people are going from doctor to doctor, they're getting frustrated, they're not getting the answers they want, but I think I would say people do great things just sometimes in the wrong order.
Totally. I mean, I've been in that, and I think Annie and I have talked about this a lot, but there's something that can feel productive in a way about going to doctor after doctor, really focusing on a protocol, buying all of the supplements. You feel like it really feels like taking the reins of your health in a way that makes you feel like, okay, at least I'm doing something. And what I've slowly learned after, some gut health issues, sleep issues, skin issues is the less, to your point, like the more I just pulled back to the fundamentals, the better I felt, the fewer specialists I was seeing. And I think doctors and sometimes also feel the pressure to give you a solution that you can purchase or that you can implement right away. And it's almost like we both are feeling that pressure of like, I'm seeing you, I want an answer. It can put you into an endless loop of chasing
Yeah, and
protocols.
I think I even got into that loop when I was trying to, like, heal any, like, deficiencies after my 2nd daughter, and after, like, being on supplements forever, I was like, "Where's the exit ramp?" Like, this isn't normal to always need this in your life. Like, I think it's fine to, like, help you get over the hump, but then, like, you should be able to, like, get off, and I think we do forget, like, the fundamentals, the basics are number 1, so I always say, like, people are living in a sick house, you could do whatever you want, you're not gonna get better, but, like, if you're not sleeping on a bed that's healthy, if your air isn't clean, if the water you're drinking is contaminated, you can do all these detoxes and all these things, but you're not going to get to the place that you want to. Where I'm always like, let's start with the basics first. It's like the least sexy, it's kind of boring, but it really is the more transformative piece of it all. And then you might not need anything else.
It's
It's
the
just like
hardest
so
to do.
exciting. It's a hard thing to even comprehend, but it really less is more, right? We hear the term all the time. Like you were saying, even with the workouts, less is more. We don't need to work out 7 days a week.
And Annie and I are both big outdoor walkers. Walking in the morning has changed my life. I was
Yeah.
borderline prescribed antidepressants just for the winter. They were like, maybe just try these. You have seasonal depression. Ironically, going outside every morning in the winter, just bundling up and getting the sunlight.
Yeah,
I
see,
prefer,
you're doing what the cat's doing already. See, you're doing what the cat's doing.
yeah.
It's so basic. Can you imagine? Like the prescription should be get some sunshine and let's see if that works. And then if it doesn't work, okay, let's go and do the next step, right? Like there's so many things. I just think sometimes people rush it. And also people aren't patient. Like our bodies do take time. And so we also have to be patient with it. You know, if it's like a new workout routine, it's funny. I just did a post today. Like, so in terms of the strength training, so my sister's been great. She was always a CrossFitter. Like that's her workout. She strength trains at least 4 days a week. I used to do one. And then at age 44 and age 60, you age the most. So at age 43, I upped it to 2. Last year was 44, I upped it to 3. So now I strength train 3 days a week, which for me is like a huge deal. So I know the Pilates craze and I love Pilates too. on all these trends, and I'm such a class lover. But I would say for habit building, if you can just strength train, but it has to not be like a hit strength train. It's literally like old school gym. I do machines. Like it's so weird, but that's like what it is. If you can do a form of that 3 days a week and then add anything else, if that's more social or fun, like let those be the bonuses, but don't let those be the foundation. Cause I think even from the class grades, what I did realize, because I was a big kickboxer, is I would kickbox 3 or 4 days a week. Stay consistent. So maybe it's about choosing one thing that brings you joy, be consistent with it, and do that multiple days and do a bunch of different workouts and thinking, oh, I'm tricking my body, blah, blah, blah. I think our body starts to go into like this flight mode accidentally, and it actually backfires because then starting in your mid 30s, when the hormones quietly start to shift, that's when you get the tiredness and moodiness and the brain fog and stuff like that. It starts to creep its way in.
It's important and it's also empowering. I think as women, like lifting weights and feeling strong, and I don't know. I think cardio, everything is a time and place. I actually went to a Pilates class this morning. It's relaxing and it's really small movements and it definitely probably builds some core muscle. But I go because my two friends are in it every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. and it's like fun and it's social and we get coffee after. But I think it's about balance, not having too much pressure, enjoying what you do, consistency over everything. But strength training is like the one thing that I do feel you have to get over the hump of this is different. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels hard. Lifting weights is definitely hard. And it's also cardio in itself, lifting weights, but it's really empowering. So I feel like strength training is just an incredible thing that everybody can benefit from.
Yeah. And I think that as women, at least in my day, like, I was always scared of getting too bulky and they get big. I will tell you, it is like impossible to put muscle on. It only starts in your 30s for like the amount of muscle you can put on. It starts to go down. It's not that easy to build muscle. So if anyone's scared about it, just try it. Be like, okay, let me try. Like I actually tried myself to like put 5 pounds of muscle on last year. Like it didn't work. It was
No,
so hard.
if you're wondering that, just ask a man, tell a man, I'm really worried about lifting weights a couple times a week because I just don't want to put on too much muscle. It's like men are trying so
So
hard to put
hard.
on that muscle. And not, I mean, not all men, but like a lot of men are really making that their life. And for us to think just adding some weightlifting to our routine, we're going to bulk up like that. It would honestly be nice if it were that easy.
Yeah, and you actually what's kind of cool, especially like in the winter, if you're going to be hibernating more, if you do strength train, your body is then burning calories for the rest of the day. So if anything, you're kind of like setting yourself up for even more success, depending on whatever your fitness and your personal body goals are. So if you're going to be a little bit less mobile because it's cold outside, that would should be the workout of choice because then you're kind of getting a two for one. That while you're not working out and you may be like sitting at your desk, you're burning some calories too.
And blood sugar balancing. And that is so critical for hormone health.
Yes, actually, that was one other thing I was going to mention related to the PCOS. So, blood sugar is a huge one. And this is even what I see in midlife, the biggest missing piece. So, most doctors, they all would agree that insulin resistance creates inflammation down the road. And I listen to, I go to longevity talks, I even speak at them, but nobody is saying throw on a glucose monitor. So, what I would say, so that you have talking about that baseline, is to try a glucose monitor for 2 weeks so you can see inside of how your body is responding to what you're eating. And for me, that has been so transformative for myself and for the women that I teach how to do it. And I say, just throw it on for 2 weeks. The first week, don't change anything. Use it as sort of like your week of just like seeing what the numbers, what your body does. And then the second week, you can update your habits by adding some more fat to your foods or eating timing and so forth. We do a whole thing with the well drop. But that for women is a big one because when you have this like high sugar that's floating around in your body that creates inflammation and that can create a whole host of symptoms, but it ranges. So, like for one person, it could be PCOS. Someone else, maybe it's endometriosis. Another person, it could be brain fog, could be moodiness, energy. But you never know. It's really a version of personalized medicine, and it's to me so empowering to be able to see like, oh, okay, my body's and your body changes. Doesn't mean it's the same all the time. Like I guess right now, like, my body's not loving blueberries. Like, let me see if I can, like, drizzle some, or pair it with avocados. And if I feel like I want to eat blueberries, that it won't like spike my sugar too much. Because it's normal for our blood sugar to spike. It's when it goes too high. And that's happening day after day, day after day. You're causing this inflammatory response in our body accidentally, but we just don't know because you can't necessarily feel it. So we're almost like driving blind. But now we have these tools, kind of like the labs that you can order online. This is another amazing tool in the toolkit to have to just sort of do a check in with yourself and see how you're doing. Because you might just have to tweak those things, and that could be somebody's like energy or sleep problems or weight problems. I fixed someone, nothing was moving the needle for her, and we did a whole like continuous glucose monitor. In 6 weeks, she dropped 10 pounds. She was shocked. She was like, I'm not the person that just like can lose weight. And this is like just tweaking some foods and food timing is what moved the needle for her.
Wow. It kind of goes back to the Eastern because when I'm going to see an acupuncturist, they talk about almost everything in terms of inflammation. It's less about what the exact end symptom is and more about you're getting that symptom because you have underlying inflammation. And we'll look at treating that through your food, through your lifestyle, through your stress levels. And I just thought that was really interesting because we go to like a very specific doctor for PCOS. And I had never really heard it framed as like the systemic inflammation before
Yes,
talking to
and
someone.
sugar is a huge contributor. When you're trying, you're kind of like working in the gray area and it's hard to like figure out what are those drivers. I always try to go back to like what are the things we do every single day, right? Hopefully you're eating food. And so let's make sure that that's being optimized for your body and not causing additional inflammation. And then when you see it, if your body is spiking too, then there are food pairings and food timings. You can do these little tweaks and you'll see the shift happen where your blood sugar won't be too high. Going up like 30 points is normal, but I'm talking about people going up in the 30 point, 50-point range. That's too much.
And stress can do it too. I was literally pre-diabetic from a toxic job. I will never forget that because it was
I
horrible,
mean,
and I had PCOS.
yeah,
Uh,
so there you go. It's real and stress is real and stress is so hard. They're like, just try to stress less. Like I definitely live a high stress life. I think it's really hard to control. So these are these little micro shifts that you can do to try to help shift that stress response.
Amazing, Amber. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for all of the tips and tricks. I know Marissa and I have a lot of good takeaways with the advice for 30-something-year-olds to prime yourself for.
Yeah, set your baseline. That's what I would say. Like you may feel like you're young, but set your baseline now, create a folder and create the Annie and Marissa folder at home.
I love
And you just start somewhere and you'll see in time, like you're going to know more about your body. You should know more about your body than your doctor in terms of just like where your numbers are at. You don't need to know all the numbers on the labs, but there are certain markers just to make sure like all your vitamins and minerals and where's your blood sugar marker, the HbA1c. And just shifting these little habits now will definitely be so transformative for you guys in the next chapter once you guys are in your 40s and then your 50s.
love it. And where can everyone find you in the Well Drop?
Yes, you
Your
can.
podcast, your coaching, your
Yes, go to thewelldrop.com, sign up for the newsletter. You can see we also have coaching there and the podcast. So say hi.
love it.
Love to hear
Amazing.
from you all.
Well, thank you for coming on, Amber. This has been an amazing conversation, and we will chat with you soon.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much. If something in today's conversation resonated with you, take a moment to pause and notice where it's sitting within you.
Living in alignment is not about fixing yourself or becoming someone new. It's about listening, trusting, and slowly coming home to who you already are.
Thank you for spending this time with us and for being part of this community.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might resonate with it too. See you next time.